Hey, what's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome back to the Lime Stream, everybody's favorite sour hour with your host, Scott Lalim, spelt Lalime. You know what it is. We're getting sour every fucking hour. It's been 2 weeks since we got this sour. So we're welcoming on CONTRIBE Music himself on this week's of Rave Hard Radio's Lime Stream. We see CONTRIBE joining right now. We're going to be joining him soon. How's everybody doing? Put it on the chat if you're doing great, if you're doing lime. I see this request. We're going lime with CONTRIBE. Taking these off. I can't see shit. Hey!
Yo, what's up?
What's up, man? How's it going?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Can't complain. It's almost Friday.
For sure. All right. So welcome to the Lime Stream, man. And what I like to do for everybody that joins the Lime Stream is give them the first opportunity to just tell us about you, where your background comes from, and how you started.
Yeah, so I go by CONTRIBE. My name is Daniel, or Daniel in Spanish. Originally from Colombia. I moved to the US about almost 10 years ago. And yeah, I've lived in a bunch of places in the US, Florida, Indiana, Minnesota. Now I'm based in Minneapolis. And I, been making music my entire life, kind of on and off. I was like in a rock band in high school, playing like Blink-182 covers and stuff like that.
Okay.
And then I went to college and I kind of like had abandoned the music stuff for a while. And then a couple of years ago, I was like set on starting a house music project, and started working pretty hard, started working on a bunch of tracks. And then last year at the beginning, right before the pandemic hit, I was like, okay, I'm ready to launch CONTRIBE. So I started sending out tracks to record labels. That's when I signed like a couple of tracks to Dirty Bird and stuff. So I was like, okay, time to launch CONTRIBE and let's see how it goes. And then the pandemic hit, so I was able to get a bunch of like music out and stuff, but still haven't been able to play and travel and do all the other fun stuff.
For sure, yeah. And with that being said, you said that the pandemic hit. We're talking about CONTRIBE. You started producing music and promoting music under. So how has this sense of Dirty Bird and Psycho Disco really benefited you through this type of quarantine, and how is these types of track gonna motivate you to get to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, it was huge because it's hard when you're starting out, and I didn't really know many people in the scene or anything. I only knew a few people in Minnesota, and they were more on the like heavy bass music scene, so that they didn't really even know what Dirty Bird was, or any of those labels. So that helped, kind of like build some credibility, like, oh, this guy can make some music, and it led me to a bunch of connections. I've met a bunch of people throughout last year, just virtually. So just waiting for the moment I can meet up with everybody, but made some really amazing connections and made a bunch of new friends.
Exactly. And with what you just said, it's hard because with what we're going through, obviously, you know what I mean? And other than that, with someone like yourself and someone like people that I interact with on the daily basis, you guys keep continuing to produce music that hits wavelengths that you didn't even imagine. And like Lance Fairchild is a person in this chat right now. It's something that him and I talk about on a daily basis. Like, it may be to a minimum now, but if you're creating music that reaches beyond that minimum, that's all that matters, really. And I honestly, listening to your music, man, that's kind of the vibe I get from the type of artist you are.
Thanks, man.
you're not really like, you know, you're not relying on the live streams, but you're more relying on the music that you produce. And the music that you produce, honestly, is a lot better than most of tracks I've heard produced throughout 2020 and even 2019. You know what I mean? So
Thanks, man.
yeah,
Means a
like
lot.
honestly, that's why I constantly repost that track. Throw Me a Bone. Kantuku is fire, you know what I mean? So just mad
Thanks,
ups to
man.
you for staying focused and staying true to what house music is, you know what I mean? And with that
Yeah.
being said, you know, we've talked about, you know, the little bit of background of CONTRIBE. We've talked about how a little bit about how you want to be here, but it's like let's talk about, you know, let's talk about yes, you produce all this stuff, but what's the crate digging looking like for CONTRIBE? What's the playlists type looking like for CONTRIBE before we get into our first live stream?
Yeah, so I really like stuff that has, you know, like the Latin influence, as you know, from I always try to pull that into my songs, sometimes like you might hear a track and it might be like, oh, it's not really Latin, but I try to pull in some of those influences. Some of the stuff I'm working on now is definitely like straight up in your face Latin. You know, like stuff in Spanish and stuff like that. And you know, probably if it wasn't for like Twitch live streams, I wouldn't be even, you know, daring to play songs in Spanish and songs with like Latin instruments and stuff like that. But that's kind of given me like the, you know, I've played it live and people react really well. So really going more towards that, and you know, trying to pull in all those influences, you know, a bunch of like tribal house things with, you know, samples from like songs in Spanish, like reggaeton remixes. That's what I've been looking for lately a lot, just so I can put in that little Latin side of it instead of the same, you know, songs that everybody's playing out at the, you know, currently, but keeping the same vibe. Like you know, I feel like I could still play, you know, kind of Dirty Bird Camp Out or something like that with the Latin vibe, like the songs would fit. That's kind of what I'm going for.
Yeah, exactly. And you saying that, like, you can still play that Dirty Bird camp out vibe with the same Latin vibe that you're putting out. But, you know, let's talk about if you weren't promoting the vibe, do you think that you yourself could still create like the American tech house and the tech house that's really being amplified through just around nationwide right now, honestly? Do
Yeah.
you yourself think that you could make that without necessarily the influences you've learned from the influences that you've created on your own sound of CONTRIBE? Do you think that would still be the same? If not, where do you think it would be?
Yeah, I mean, I think about that a lot because sometimes, you know, I think, well, you know, am I making the right, you know, decision for like my music career, making the tracks I am making? But sometimes I try making some of those more, as you say, like the American, you know, the kind of more tech house that we are probably used to seeing, like, you know, top 10 on Beatport and all that. But I've tried to make stuff like that, and I just, you know, I don't have fun while I do it. So um, I just don't, you know, I've made a few songs that you could say are probably around in that style, but I end up not being happy with them because they're not as good as some of the like top 10 and stuff like that, but they're also a little more, you know, fit the mold. So it's like I'm making something that a bunch of people are making and it's not as good as them. So, you know, I feel like I just keep making my own kind of weirder stuff and, you know,
Yeah.
get some people that like it.
And as you say, like it's not good as them. It's better, is what you're trying to tell me. How do you think that it's better?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's better. I'd just say it's different. I mean, it's better for me that, you know, to make stuff that I like.
Yeah, I'm not
I
saying it's better
consider,
than what they're producing, but how is it
yeah.
better to your ear, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I mean, it's just trying to do something different. I think it's the market, especially right now, it's so saturated. I feel like I see online and, you know, there's thousands of DJs making like the same type of music. Um, there's so many, you know, so many artists that are doing a lot of things that are pretty similar. You know, there's of course some guys that are killing it doing their own kind of sound, but I don't know. I just always try to combine some of the because I've always been into very different types of music, you know, like all the Latin stuff, and then also I was like a period in dubstep, you know, heavier bass music. So just trying to incorporate all of those things. And I feel like if I just do a normal sounding tech house track, then there's like a bunch of stuff that I'm leaving out because it doesn't really fit in, you know, like if you just do the normal like bass line and stuff like that, you know, it doesn't leave that much stuff to put in a bunch of weird sounds, you know, weird,
Yeah.
whatever.
And that kind of relates to the genre that you and I both like, you know, work in, kind of operate in, you know what I mean? And that going back to what I was saying, you said, you know, it doesn't really work this way, it doesn't really work that way. With you producing house music, with you producing tech house music, in CONTRIBE's mental, what works? That's what I want to learn.
I mean, I think for me, especially when I'm building new tracks or looking for tracks to play out, the main thing for me is a good groove. That's the main thing for me. Outside of that, you know, there's anything fits as long as it has a good, you know, a good groove. You know, can be pretty simple, can be pretty complex, you know, production music wise, but as long as it's a good groove that makes you feel good and stuff, you know. I'm not too picky, you know. I'll listen to a bunch of different things and make a bunch of different songs and whatever ends up sounding good. But you know, that's the one thing that always has to work is the groove.
Yeah, I feel you, definitely. Well, that's kind of like the background that I like to learn. Is kind of like where you're from, where you started. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of like where you're from, where you started. We kind of talked about the groove and the style of music you like to create. We're going to talk about a lot more of that in the deeper of this hour. But what I want to learn more is what the comments have to ask. And it's Lance Fairchild here. He wants to know, what is your dream festival / club to play?
You know, that's a hard question because I literally haven't played anything yet. But definitely on my list for sure, Dirty Bird Camp Out, because that's one of those festivals that I went to and I was like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, take this music seriously because I want to play here. But outside of that, you know, definitely, okay, I'll give you a list of 3. So Dirty Bird Camp Out in the US, then, you know, play some big show back home in Colombia, and then play a show like at 3 a.m. in Ibiza or something like that.
Yeah. And what is that 3 a.m. Ibiza show that you're really like? What's the ideal 3 a.m. Ibiza show? Let's hear that.
I don't know. I've never been to Ibiza, so I don't know what the clubs are, but just maybe like something in the beach outside.
But what's your ideal opening up for in Ibiza? Like, who are you opening up for in Ibiza, CONTRIBE? It's any artist that you can pick. You know what I mean? This isn't like a select fucking lineup. You know what I mean? This is who CONTRIBE wants to open up for in Ibiza.
Let's see. There's so many people. You know, I'm trying to think of like somebody that plays in Ibiza, but
yeah, like a resident almost, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe like do like something.
Carl
like,
Cox was a resident in Ibiza for a long time.
I don't really listen to him that much. Maybe like the Martinez brothers or something like that, just because they also do the Latin vibe. Like lately they've been like collaborating with reggaeton artists, so I think they're super, you know, super amazing.
Hell yeah.
Maybe somebody huge from Europe like Clapton or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. For sure. Hell yeah. We got another question in the question box, actually. What is your favorite plugin? All right. What's your favorite plugin? Let me turn down this for a little bit.
Favorite plugin?
Question. The dude's name is Question. Counter Paco, what is your favorite plugin?
Favorite plugin? Probably the Pro Q3. This is the EQ. yeah, it's just so easy to use. Like outside of all the Ableton stock stuff, that's probably it.
For
Probably
sure.
what I would say. If it's like the one plugin you take to like a island or whatever.
Oh yeah. So you heard from Contribe. It's what again?
It's a Pro
It's something
Q3.
3.
Yeah, it's a Fab Filter plugin.
And what is it again?
It's a EQ. It's just an equalizer. It's just like really like advanced, and you can get really precise with it, and it's really easy to use too.
Hell yeah. We got right here from Arnold. Man, I can't read that. I'm sorry.
That's Arnold from Arnold and Lane. What's up, Arnold?
What's up, Arnold? What's your favorite artist?
Fave synth. I used to have a Minilog, and that was amazing. I sold it recently because I didn't use it as much, but that sounds so good. So I'd probably say that the Minilog. Favorite artist, Arnold and Lane.
Favorite artist, Arnold and Lane. Hell yeah.
I mean, they've been killing it, so definitely like an inspiration for me.
And why? What about that synth is? Why aren't you using it anymore?
It's just because I live in an apartment and my desk space is very limited, and that was a huge synth, and it was just like a hassle to have it out, and then every time I had to disconnect it, put it back on, so I just ended up selling it.
Just making it working smarter than harder kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, and yeah, I'm just trying to keep it as much as possible within the computer, just to simplify stuff also.
For sure. Well, I don't see any more questions from the comments right now, Contribe. So my next question for you is, right here actually. My bad. Is my question for you is, when you're producing, how long do you take while producing a track? And are you producing more than one track at a time, or are you producing just that one track?
Yeah, so I usually try to work on a track on a row, like just every day work on that track until I'm done. I'll probably have a track like 90% done within a week, maybe 2 weeks, but then the last 10% might take a longer time. You know, that last 10% might take a month or a few months, just while I'm getting feedback from other people, and you know, if I want to add some nice vocals or something like that. And I used to only work on a track at a time, but lately I've been just working on different things at a time, just to stay, you know, more interested in different things. I was, you know, just getting bored by working on one thing at a time. Yeah,
for sure. And
yeah, like right now I'm working on like 5 tracks. I'm just looking at like my tracker here, and I have like five or six songs right now that I have to finish. So that's probably too much.
When you're working on so many like pieces at a time, so what kind of motivation, or what kind of what kind of motivational spectrum can you give to young DJs or producers who are trying to do the same thing as you, produce multiple tracks at a time? What kind of motivation can you give them to keep, working on those multiple tracks? And if they can't do that, if they're coming to a point where, they think, this is a lot more than what I wanted on my plate, what kind of digression benefit can you give them? Like, how can they digress from what they're doing to make it a little bit of a smaller plate for them?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question. I've just been changing a lot with how I work on music, because last year, for example, at the beginning, like right around quarantine, before quarantine started, when you're going to shows, you see other people, you're going to new places, you're seeing new faces, everything. it's really easy to be inspired because you can find ideas just walking around. You see something happening in the street and you're like, oh, that's an idea for a song. Or you're just more busy with other stuff, so you're like, oh, I can't wait to go back and work on a song. Right now, for example, I work from home, so I'm on my computer all day. So after I'm done with work, it's kind of hard to go like, okay, now I'm gonna continue being in the computer and working on music. So it's trying to step outside as much as possible. Talk to some people, listen to different music. But yeah, I mean, hopefully we'll have shows and festivals back, and that's usually the biggest inspiration, because when you hear something at a club super loud, that's when you're like, oh, this is what works, this is what doesn't work.
Exactly.
You see the reactions.
Exactly. And without that being like a probable cause to you being able to realize, hey, this is a fucking banger, or any other track that can come from anybody else. With the quarantine and us not being able to be in the clubs and be in live shows as much as possible, how do you really consider a track being a total banger without having that reaction from the crowd? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, especially the last 6-7 months, I really haven't been thinking of making bangers, or there was a time that I was trying to focus on that, but I found that when I if I sit down, I'm like, I'm gonna write a banger, then that usually never works out.
Never works out. Yeah.
So now I just focus on
It's not
on having
necessarily a
fun.
club banger is what I'm asking.
Yeah, just like a great track.
Yeah, it's like without that initial reaction from the crowd, because a lot of DJs and producers really revolve themselves around that initial reaction without sending even tracks to this and that label. But now that we're in quarantine, now that we're in this sense of, okay, we can't really play at clubs regularly, how do you consider this track as a banger without even sending it to a label? And if it's not a fucking banger, how do you consider it a great track to yourself?
I mean, usually, if I'm able to finish a track and get to that point, it's probably because it's a track that I really like. If I'm writing a song and get to a point that I don't like it, I'll just abandon it and start a new idea. And then also now the good thing, we have really good producers that are giving feedback on Twitch or on Discord and stuff. So I used to be really active on the Ernesto's Discord, getting feedback from there. Now have a group, for example, with Lance, and we send each other tracks, we get our feedback. Or there's like the Space Jack Tune Reactor, send your track in, you see two guys like dancing to it. There's some different ways, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's mostly based on how much I like the track or not.
Yeah, how much CONTRIBE likes the track.
Yeah,
and that's kind of like the general response I've received from a lot of producers and DJs around here. But the last question I want to ask before getting into the next Lime Time with you, CONTRIBE, is what's happy hour on Twitter? Let's explain it. What's mixing beats and what's mixing drinks?
Yeah, so this year, as I said, I've been working from home and being stuck at home all the time, and I had COVID, so I was quarantined for a couple of weeks, not leaving the house. So one of those hobbies that I found outside of music is making cocktails. So
you sent me one of the cocktails before we even started this.
Yeah. So, yeah, I really got into it, at the beginning, just making some pretty simple drinks, and then throughout the entire year, just buying like a bottle every other time and just experimenting, trying new things. So I really like doing that. And then, this January, I got all the stuff I needed to do live streams on Twitch. So I thought, why not just combine the two things I like, music and cocktails. And because, when I was streaming on a Saturday, I was probably going to be making a couple of cocktails. So I thought might as well just make them on stream and make it kind of the theme of the thing. So I have some cocktail visuals, with the green screen, I make it look like I'm in a bar.
Exactly.
and just trying to do something different too. There's so many streams
try to keep your
nowadays.
viewers involved.
Yeah, and also, like as Cameron said, gin and tonic and techno. I made a track called Gin and Tonic, and it's gonna come out in Space Yak on sometime this year. So just trying to make the cocktail thing part of like my brand. I mean, just who I am.
Let me
what
just
I
get
like.
right. It's talking about how gin and tonic is not the move, right? Like I'm just curious.
It's not a what?
It's talking like the vocal is talking about how gin and tonic may not be the move, and then it's like.
No, it's about gin and tonic it's called gin. It just says gin, tonic, and techno. That's like the
okay for sure. Yeah,
the theme.
I think I might have caught something different than that vocal, so I apologize. Just wanted to ask you.
Yeah, no, it hasn't come out yet.
Yeah, of course. With that being said, we've talked about the little background on CONTRIBE. We've talked about what you're doing with your live streams and why you're trying to make it different. A little about what you did, trying to combine music and your favorite drinks, you know what I mean? I tried just involving drinking and, people who were involved with music in the same thing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And now we're 6 seasons later and we're talking to CONTRIBE music, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it just goes to show that any idea can take you to the next level as long as you're committed to it. And with that being said, I think, about 5 questions in the question box for you here. Lance Fairchild wants to know, what was the inspiration behind Throw Me a Bone?
So I had a...
And that's a question I have for you too, so
okay.
I want...
Yeah, so there's 2 parts to that track. So one is, there's a song in Spanish. It's a really old song from, like, I don't know, early 2000s. Maybe not, like 2006 or something. And it basically says like, girl, like it basically says like, girl, throw me a bone in Spanish. Yeah, it's kind of like a saying. And then also last year, me and my wife adopted a puppy. And that was like the first few weeks that we were, waking up in the middle of the night for her. So I probably have dogs in my mind. So I was like thinking about bones. And I thought about, just converting that song from Spanish, like as I said again, taking the Latin influence, a song I liked in Spanish, and making it into a, house track, and with the inspiration of the words, but also about my dog. So, it's multiple things that led to that idea.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. You heard it right from CONTRIBE himself. We got a couple more questions in the box here, man. Lance wants to know, or actually not Lance. We got Steve Unordinary wants to know, where are you guys located? Well, you can tell him first, and I'll tell him.
I'm located in Minneapolis, so just surviving the cold. But luckily, we're prepared for it, unlike Texas. So luckily for us, the cold is not that big of an issue. We just stay home.
For sure. And how is Minneapolis moving there? How has that transition really benefited your career before we get into where I'm from?
Yeah, I mean, I started CONTRIBE in Minneapolis, and definitely, I don't think CONTRIBE would exist without me moving to Minneapolis.
Okay, because, and why is that?
So I moved to Minneapolis, and I was kind of, with the idea of working on music. I had been working on music for a while, and I met a group of, it's basically a school of writing and DJing, writing electronic music and DJing called Slam Academy. So I started taking a class there, and then, I met a bunch of people there, and that's how I kind of got involved in the electronic music community. And I ended up having, somebody and, a group of people, kind of taught me how to get started with some of the things, how to, just get started with that. And then I've also, since Minneapolis, the scene is not that big, I've already met a bunch of people. Like I saw, for example, Christian Baca, he was on the chat. He's a big DJ here in Minneapolis and promoter. So, it wasn't too hard to get to know some of the big players here in the community. As, if I was in LA, there'd be so much competition that it probably would not be as easy to start or, get some of the opportunities.
Of course, of course. And back in September, you opened up for Gene Ferris, I believe, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about that opening up. What was the experience like, and what was the
Yeah, no.
connection like with Gene Ferris?
Well, I mean, it was kind of weird, because I mean, it was a really safe show. It was outside of a brewery, uh, on a Saturday during the day. It was outdoors, so, and it was like my first show ever, basically. So I hadn't really ever opened for a big DJ. So I was pretty nervous at the beginning because, I had never done it. I was like, what if, I mess up or something? But it ended up going really well. Obviously, I didn't, interact with Gene as much as I would have wanted just because of COVID. But the few minutes I talked to him, he was really cool. He was like, he came up and he was like, "Oh, he asked me to play a couple more songs." He was like vibing right behind me. So that was cool. I mean, it was really fun. My first like real show, kind of.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And a little bit about that. If you had more time to talk to Gene, what would you have talked to him about? And if you don't really want to talk about that, um, let's talk about the connection. Okay, all right. Let's talk about how important the connections are that got you to that point, and why making connections like that is so important in the world that you and I work in.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a connection game, because, you know, sadly, a lot of, the music and everything, is based on your outreach, how many followers you have, how many plays you're getting. Some of those things, which, I mean, I wish it was just focused on the music, but I mean, without it, you really can't get anywhere. It's with connections, it makes it a lot easier, to get songs signed. For example, for Psycho Disco, I had some friends that helped me, connect with them. The same with Dirty Bird. I had Two Tails, who used to live here, well, lives in Minnesota now. He's the one that was like, "Yo, send the track here. This is how you do it." Um, and then for example, for the Gene Ferris show, I met the promoter that organizes those shows here. So it's all based on connections. Without connections, even if you have great music, sometimes it's just gonna get lost. Nobody's gonna listen to it. Nothing's gonna happen. So
And
yeah, huge.
with that, it's with what you just said. How do you? Okay, what's one motivational prospect that you can give to young producers and young DJs out there that are really trying to get their music heard? What kind of motivational aspect can you give to them to get their music heard?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing with music, that at least I found out, is that you're always, if you're a music producer, you're always basically one song away from doing a big break, whatever that means for you. So I had never released, for example, I had never released any music, had put out any music anywhere. And then after writing literally hundreds of songs throughout multiple years, then finally I made one song that was good enough to get signed to a label, and then that kind of started the process. So you never know when that next song, so you just gotta keep working. For me, it was like 100 and something songs that I had to write before I wrote something good. For some people it might be less, for some it might be more.
Yeah.
But you're always, sometimes it's hard to motivate yourself. You might think like, oh, it's really hard to do, but
Yeah.
literally the next, the song you start today might be, the huge track that gets
might
you.
be 10 minutes before you get to the hugest track of the year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you never know. Like the next thing you write could be the next like deep end or something.
Yeah. And with that being said, before we get into our next Lime Time, with you talking about releases getting on this and that, kind of like the work ethic you go through, how long do you really think that you spend on one track? And like you said before, you kind of work on multiple tracks at a time. So if you're not just working on one track, how much time are you spending on these multiple tracks? And what kind of checklist do you go through before kind of realizing that they're ready to be released?
Yeah, it really depends. Sometimes I'll write a track, say like 90% of a track within 2 days. Just find some inspiration and just work really fast, and finish a track in a couple of days. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. Right now, I have some songs that I started back in October, November that I'm still finishing up.
Yeah.
And it all depends. I try to just base, just to get a realistic opinion. I'll, get opinion from some really good producers. Try to send that out for feedback to some guys that have been in the, making music for a long time. And I try to base it on them. Once I send it to somebody and they're like, I don't have any more comments, that's probably when I'll send it to a label.
Yeah, of course. And like we talked about, what criteria really makes it to send off to a label. Now you brought up the label. What to CONTRIBE makes it a worthy track to send off to a label so other producers like yourself can know?
Yeah. What checklist?
It's not even a checklist.
Yeah,
What
no,
about the
I know what
track
you mean.
makes it available to send to a label, and what do you have to go through to make sure it's there?
That's really hard. As always, like as I said, it's like about how I feel with the song. If I'm really happy with it and really vibing with it, that's usually what I go with at the end of the day. If it's I'm not happy with it, if I'm just not fully convinced by the song, or like any little details in the song, that I'll know that's not not ready. But if I listen to a song and and I'm really happy with it, and I want to listen to my own song like a bunch of times, then that's when I know I have something good.
Exactly. And with that being said, you being someone who's released on Psycho Disco, released on Dirty Bird, the Bird Feed, what has been the biggest motivations through this pandemic, through your music, in hopes of playing live again?
Yeah, I think it's changed. Probably at the beginning of the year, of last year, I was probably my big motivation was just keep getting on some new labels, keep getting songs out there. But right now, I'm just trying to focus on making songs I like. And then I think after that, I think good things come from that. So that's my biggest motivation is I love making music and just want to keep making it. And if I get signed to other labels, or get invited to play some big shows, that'll just be like an extra.
Yeah, of course. And kind of relating to this question is, um, we talked about your biggest motivations through the pandemic, and the advice that you can give to a lot of others is super motivational. But the thing I really want to know is, through this pandemic, what kind of motivation can you give to producers and DJs out there that are really trying to get their name out there? Because you yourself, CONTRIBE, has kind of really perfected getting your name out there through such a harsh time. So what kind of like promotion tactics and media tactics you can give to these young DJs and
Yeah.
producers out there?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just trying to be honest, and just not, because I mean I see a lot of people that are starting out, and their promotion ideas will be to you know DM the biggest DJs directly and be like, hey, this is my new track. um, you know you have to show that you're like actually interested. um, I think that's the biggest thing. Try to make connections with people outside of the music itself. And then once you have a connection with somebody, then you can try to promote yourself a little bit or something like that. but always, from a, if you think, oh, I'm gonna make friends with this person just so they can hear my music, then people can tell that, especially all the big DJs. They know who's reaching out to them just to get free promotion or stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So I been trying to just reach out to people, DJs that are bigger than me, or DJs that are starting out. If I like their music, tell them, hey, I like your songs.
Yeah.
Just try to get connected. If eventually I have a song like, hey, can I get your feedback? But I've already made that connection with them.
So
from a sincere point.
So what you're basically saying is, try to stay connected. Be involved with what you're doing in your realm. Now, what I want to know from you, because this is a question that I regularly don't bring up through a lot of the DJs and producers that I interview, is how do you not be annoying? Let's talk about that. To a club promoter, to a club owner, to even someone who's just throwing the show that wants to book you, how do you not be annoying? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really big, if you support people first, especially everybody in the scene, they'll always need help, promoting something, even if it's just sharing it, liking it, commenting, replying to, I really like what you're doing.
I'm sorry, you cut off there for a second. What's up?
Or, hey, oh yeah, sorry, okay. So yeah, just, trying to help people out before asking for help. I think that's really big, just telling them, hey, I really like what you're doing, or like your songs, or, you're throwing a show tonight, is there, you need any help with anything, just sharing it to your page, inviting your friends.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said, it's like, we're talking about how you're not being annoying, and it's not even the factor of promoting your friend who's playing. How do you not be annoying to the club promoter, the club manager, or whoever you yourself are trying to get booked through? How do you kind of represent yourself as someone who's trying to play there, but is not also being annoying? Because the biggest thing that I've learned nowadays is that annoying the club promoter or the club owner is the last thing that you want to do with trying to reserve a spot in their play field.
I mean, during normal times, the big thing, is, show up, show your support, go to the shows, just go to the shows and have fun. If you have the opportunity to meet them in person, let them know you like the show, let them know you like what they're doing, and, make sure they know your name. And then hopefully, they'll follow you. And then through, the fact of, you posting music, you doing some other stuff, they'll notice. Because if they're the ones that end up coming to you instead of, you coming to them to ask, then it ends up being better. Yeah, of course. Because then it's
always better. Yeah.
It ends up being, of course, better. Yeah.
Yeah. And kind of like relating to the question is, well, I live in a place, Tucson, Arizona. I live here with Lance Fairchild, as you know. Something like what you just explained is actually very, extremely hard for us to message someone. That's like the initial thing in Tucson to kind of get your name out there. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily of hoping they reply to you. It's necessarily sending that mix out and knowing that no one's going to reply to you, and kind of sending up that follow-up email, and then seeing them in the club around here and benefiting off that personal reaction from them. You know what I mean? And that's why I ask you, because here in Tucson, it takes almost like 5 steps to get to that point of a club owner being like, yeah, I'll bring you on and I'll play you. From where you're at, before we get into our next Lime Time, because we're about to dive right back into our next Lime Time, all I want to know is you're central. So what does it look like trying to really get that club opening, or not even opening, get that club slot what does it look like, sending, just trying to get a position in the clubs
Well, I
where
mean,
you're at?
right
What does it
now,
kind of look like?
I haven't really been doing that at all just because of COVID. Um, yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, obviously.
yeah.
But like I'm talking kind
So,
of
I
like
mean, the
before
good
second
thing,
COVID.
kind of good thing, bad thing, depending on how you look at it, is that, as I said, the scene in Minnesota, at least for house music, is pretty small. There's only a few people that bring, house DJs. And, I think I've met most of the players here. And they're all, really nice. They're all really pushing hard to make the scene here better. So I mean, from that side, it's just making friends with them. They've been really cool. Like, you know, one of them was they invited me to open for Gene, so that was amazing. And um, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind
Yeah,
of
I mean, and
what I was talking about.
I guess now when stuff opens up, I'll be starting to look at playing shows outside of Minnesota. Um, that'll be like my next step as soon as it's possible, going around different states.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And yeah. Hey, you talked about opening up for Gene Ferris. You kind of gave a relative aspect to where people here or people in any other state can kind of relate to what you're going through. Um, Other than that, we're diving right into
Okay.
our next live stream, CONTRIBE. So we're gonna answer questions from the comments. I know I'm not sipping a margarita with you tonight. I'm a little buzzed as it is. I'm not gonna lie. I sipped drinks with Lance Fairchild before we got into this, but we got questions from the comments and we want to answer them. You know what I mean? So let me go ahead and bring some of those up. Dummy Splash wants to know, how does it feel to be engaged / married?
I hear my wife laughing in the background. Yeah, we got married in July, and I mean, got incredibly lucky that during the pandemic, we moved in like a year ago from this week or something like that. We moved in for the first time, right 2 or 3 weeks before quarantine started. So we got really lucky because I'm able to spend time with her. So and then we ended up getting married. We got our dog. So outside of all the bad things that happened last year, at least from that personal side, it was extremely positive.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And I don't see a lot of questions in the oh wait, we got one more. Haley wants to know, my girlfriend, what goes in the bowl first, milk or cereal?
I normally do milk, but at least my wife always tells me
Milk,
that's wrong.
man.
But I've always just done milk.
It's wrong, man. You're right. Your wife is
I don't know.
right.
I just always grown up. I don't know why. Like I never knew that was a thing until I came to the U.S. that people like think that that's weird.
I feel like I feel like it's more an American thing to put your cereal first because you can really, I don't know, monitor how much milk you're putting in there. So like let's say you just put a whole bowl for worth of milk and then you pour cereal and then it's not enough cereal.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Or
I don't know.
some shit like that. I think it's more of a US thing to put more milk than cereal because we are the fat
Yeah, I don't know.
country.
I just I
You know what
thought
I
I
mean?
saw it the other way that if I put the milk first, then I can really control how much milk there is. I don't know. I mean, it's the same at the end of the day. I don't know why people see it so weirdly.
Yeah, it's really it's the same operation because I thought the same way the other way. Like I
Yeah,
can control
yeah.
how
It's just
much
that it
cereal.
became
You
kind
know
of
what I
like a
mean?
weird thing. But you know, I'm probably not gonna change.
Yeah, definitely. And and let's diverse around that question. What goes into producing a track first? The bass line, the hi hats.
Yeah,
What do
I
you
usually
put into
always
a track
start
first?
with a kick
What do
and a
you
bass
start with?
line. That's usually what I always do first, and then I probably spend the most time just on that, and then once I get that to a point that I'm really happy with it, I'll move on. If I start, if I have a kick and a bass and I'm not really liking what I'm doing, I'll probably start until I have something I like. That's usually how I work, unless I have like a very specific idea of, maybe using a vocal or, remixing like an old, hip hop track or something like that. Then usually it's, just a kick and the bass.
Hip hop track. Do you usually reference yourself off of old hip
Not
hop
really.
tracks?
I don't really listen to hip hop too much. But I really
Okay.
like vocals from old hip hop tracks. I think they have a really really good vibe
Okay.
that it's kind of hard to find today with some of the new stuff that's coming out. And I mean, it's kind of house music came from that culture, so it's always been associated together.
Well, you're definitely right because yeah, you're definitely right with the new hip hop nowadays. A lot of it is hard to follow. So that's kind of going back to what I'm saying. What finishing touches are you putting into a track to make sure that it's done?
Yeah, well, especially with house music, I think that there's a really big thing with repetition. Uh, Especially since it's kind of like the same beat going throughout the entire track. So probably for me, the last steps is just making sure that you can listen to it, and every few seconds or every 10 seconds or something, that there's something new coming in, and if somebody listens to it, they're not gonna be distracted because there's always something new coming. There's always a change. So probably the last few steps is just making sure something's changing, something new comes in, something comes out. The song stays interesting and people can listen throughout the entire track. It's not gonna like clear a dance floor because it's like boring.
Yeah. Before we get into the last section of our live stream, because we're
Yeah,
actually
that was
reaching
pretty
7:55 a
quick.
lot sooner than I imagined.
Goodbye.
That was so quick. This hour it went by so quick. Um, Pretty much what you're saying is, you're doing this and that. I asked you what kind of finishing touches are you putting to a track. Now that kind of leads me into my last question, the sequence. What makes a track for CONTRIBE? I asked this Drew Dabbs on the last episode of my last season. I really want to know from you, what makes a track qualified to send off to a label in your mindset?
I think I mean, at least for me, I think it has to be something that's really unique. Something that feels fresh compared to everything else that's going on. I mean, at least for me, that's important. Sometimes it might not be a good fit for a label, for example, because it's kind of out there or different. But I always try to make sure it's something that's very different. Try to if the song feels like it's similar to something else, I'll always try to make sure to throw in something that's gonna make it very very different, very unique. And yeah, that's a big thing for
Yeah.
me. I've never wanted to like be one of those artists that has like a sound and it's like with the one thing that they do. I just want like every track to feel very different. I don't really want you to like listen to two songs and be like, oh, those are contrived songs. It's when you're like, oh, they're just like something different, something new, something fresh.
Yeah, definitely. And with you talking about, the differentiate, just the difference in what you're producing, what defines itself as different in CONTRIBE's eyes?
Yeah,
Last
I,
question
I I
before we
think
get
it's
into promotion.
bringing in my own perspective and influences, just because there's nobody else that's been through everything, the same things that the same places I've been to, the same people that I've met. So just making sure that that I bring everything I can from my own experiences into the song. um, and not try to write something because this other artist did this. uh, Try to avoid that a lot. If everybody's doing this song like Fisher, On purpose will try to like avoid, doing it. Even if, I'm turning towards that way, I'll be like, this is kind of what like a lot of people are doing right now. So what can I do that's kind of different? How can I make it into, something new?
And that's like the biggest question I wanted to ask you, is because all the music that I hear you put out is so much different than what a lot of people are putting out. And that's the whole different question. And you kind of led us into that conversation itself. So thank you again. Other than that, you being said, I like to put things out that are different sounding, this and that. Being somebody who produced, or not produced, who has released on Dirty Bird, who has released on Psycho Disco, who has released solo that are tracks that are just super fire. What can we expect from CONTRIBE in 2021? What live streams can we see you on? And what are your
Yeah,
next
good
releases, man?
question. I got a few things coming out for this year. I got a EP coming out on OKNF Records in 2 weeks, March 4th. It's a 3-track EP that I wrote last year. Pretty excited about it. One of the tracks is like vocals from one of my best friends, so I'm pretty excited. Um, I got, I'm doing my weekly live streams from home where I, mix tracks and mix cocktails. Next week I have a big stream with a label I really like, but that'll be secret until the day. Um,
No, okay.
no,
I was like,
it'll
can
be
you
secret.
announce it?
Next week it'll be soon, and then yeah, then I got a few other tracks coming out that I'm working on. Super excited. Um, hopefully we'll be able to start playing shows soon.
Hell yeah. Playing shows, yeah. And that's kind of how everybody I work with, Lance, Low Audio, Alexander's my roommate, is kind of like the main focus that everybody is focusing on, is when shows are really kind of going to open up. But like I said, CONTRIBE, everybody who's watching, has made waves even throughout the COVID pandemic. He's produced tracks on labels that a lot of us producers imagine to produce on, or to release on. And again, thank you for coming on, man. It's a huge thanks for having you here. It's an honor to be able to interview you. And like I said, ever since all this started, it's just been a weird concept, a weird transition, kind of describing people. Okay, this is how I interview you. This is how we sit down. It's going to be a split screen. You're going to see my face. You kind of have to pay attention. It's been a whole transition, but ever since I started it, it's been utmost respect from everyone who wants to come on. And I can't thank you enough for being patient and being the most respectful. So thank you again, man. And honestly, I have a bunch of more questions to ask you. I'm so surprised that hour went by so quick. Um, Other than that, man, for sure. The thing about Instagram is it's gonna go a minute longer, and then they're gonna try to shut me down. Yeah, and other than that, I have other seasons that are ready to come. I have one more question for you that kind of relates to all this. Um, we've talked about a lot of your production side of pretty much this whole interview. We talked about your production side. Let's talk about your crate digging. You said you played live shows. You said that you hope that COVID comes back to a normal so you can play more live shows. What kind of crate digging do you go through before playing that live show? And what kind of platforms are you using? Oh yeah. And that was kind of like the only last question I had for you, man. Other than that, we kind of promoted before, but there's still people in here that want to hear you. What do you have to promote? I'm gonna promote what I gotta promote, and then we're gonna call this a night, and then I'll be in your DMs about something in the future. I'm gonna at your social right here for Instagram. For sure. So stay tuned to his live stream, his EP coming out. It's gonna all be fire. Uh, Other than that, I got just a bootleg freestyle hip hop album or EP dropping tomorrow. Um, Other than that, next week I interview an artist out of Scottsdale, Tempe area. His name is Weird Flex. He's been doing stuff out just in general Tempe and Scottsdale area that's really been booming. He makes house music and a little bit of more like what we talked about earlier, a little bit of more of dub music, a little trappy dub music that he makes too as well. Other than that, after that, I have a a man by the name of Slick Floyd who's also out of Phoenix the week after. So all you guys can stay tuned for that. Thank you guys for joining us with the Contribe interview. Contribe, if there's anything else that you'd love to say right now, go ahead and say it. I'm sorry. What? I'm sorry. You cut out right when you said you talked to Lance the other day. Oh man, he's cutting out again. Oh no, what's happened? Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you now. Definitely, definitely soon. Lance may have told you about what we do here a little bit. Right now, it's as every other state's going on. We have those regulations. We have those, certain things we have to follow by. So our shows aren't as lit as they usually would be. But if we wait until everything kind of rolls back into each other, there's not a doubt that we can have you here in Arizona playing. You know what I mean? Somewhere. Um, exactly. Other than that, man, like I just look forward to meeting you in person. So, and thank you again for joining the live stream on Rave Hard Radio. Um, Other than that, we're gonna continue to boost you and continue to just be involved with you. And again, thank you for joining our live stream. It was super fast. It felt like we only got to talk about like super little things, but it's okay. Yeah. We're gonna have to get a part two on here. But everyone who is still in the comments and watching this interview, let's get an L in the chat for Contribe. Like I said, next week I got Weird Flex coming on. After that, I got Handsome Boys coming on, and then oh no, after that I got Econova coming on, and then after that I got We Greater Than I, and then after that it's Handsome Boys. But other than that, Contribe Music, you've been a great friend, a great person to talk to this whole hour, and this hour felt like it was a minute. So thank you again. Everybody, let's get this L's shredding through the chat for Contribe. All right, Contribe. I'm going to go ahead and end this. And if you want to talk about anything else, you can hit me in the DMs, man. Thanks for joining. And Lime is out on Rave Hard Radio.